I'm 85 years old. I have lived long enough to forget many things. So many things, more than I ever thought possible. Names fade, people I knew for decades. People whose faces I can still see, but whose names have slipped away like water through my fingers. Dates blur, years collapse into each other. 1975 feels like yesterday and like a lifetime ago simultaneously. Faces soften in memory. The sharp details disappear. Features become general. Expressions become impressions. But there is one thing I remember with brutal clarity, one thing that time has not softened or blurred or allowed me to forget. One mistake, not the biggest mistake of my career, not the business deal I should have taken, not the investment I should have made, not a financial loss, not the money I lost in bad decisions, not the opportunities I missed that would have made me wealthier, not a public failure, not the embarrassment, not the moment everyone was watching and I fell short. A personal one, a private one, a small one that only I carry. And 85 years later, after all this time, after all the perspective that age brings, after all the wisdom I'm supposed to have accumulated, I still cannot forgive myself for it. People think regret is loud. They think it screams. They think it demands attention. They think you can't miss it. It isn't. It doesn't work that way. It is quiet. So quiet you barely notice it at first. It sits in the background of your life like a low hum, always there. Never quite loud enough to command your full attention, but never quiet enough to ignore completely. Constant, day after day, year after year, decade after decade. Persistent. It doesn't fade. It doesn't weaken. It doesn't give you a break. Waiting for silence to grow louder. Waiting for the noise of life to quiet down so it can finally be heard clearly. I have achieved things. I'm not saying my life was wasted. I'm not saying I did nothing. I built a business from nothing, built it with my own hands and mind, provided jobs, provided for my family. I raised children, good children, children who became good adults, who have their own children now. I survived hardships, economic crashes, personal losses, health scares, things that could have destroyed me but didn't. But when the room is quiet, when the distractions are gone, when there's nothing to occupy my mind, none of that comes back to me. None of the achievements, none of the victories, none of the things I was so proud of at the time. What comes back is a moment, one specific moment frozen in time. A small one, seemingly insignificant, the kind of moment that happens every day and gets forgotten by most people. And the worst part, the part that makes this so painful, at the time, it didn't feel important. It felt routine. It felt like just another Tuesday, just another decision among thousands. That is how the most dangerous mistakes happen. Not with fanfare, not with warning signs, not with clear markers that say this moment will haunt you, not in chaos, not in dramatic moments where everything feels high stakes, in normality, in the everyday, in the mundane decisions we make without thinking. I was 42 years old, in the prime of my life, strong, capable, confident, busy, always busy. My calendar was full. My mind was occupied. There was always something demanding my attention. Proud of what I was building, proud of my work ethic, proud of being someone people could count on professionally, convinced I was doing the right thing, convinced my priorities were correct, convinced that work came first because work provided everything else. My father was aging, not dramatically, not in a way that alarmed anyone, just the slow, natural process of getting older. He was not dramatic about it. He never complained. He never made demands. He never asked for pity or special treatment. But he had slowed down. You could see it if you paid attention, which I didn't, not really. One afternoon, he called me. I remember exactly where I was standing when I answered, in my office, looking at papers on my desk. He asked me something simple, nothing complicated, nothing demanding. Can you come sit with me tomorrow, just for a while? That's all he asked, just to sit, just to be there, just for a while. I told him I was busy, without even checking my calendar. without even considering it, just an automatic response. I had meetings, 3 of them scheduled back to back, none of them critically important in retrospect, but at the time they felt urgent. Deadlines, projects that needed finishing, things that felt like they couldn't wait, things that felt urgent, things that seemed more important than sitting with an old man who wasn't even sick. I said, next week, 2 words, next week, as if next week was guaranteed, as if time was infinite, as if there would always be another opportunity. He nodded. I couldn't see him, but I know he nodded. That's what he always did. He never pushed. He never insisted. He never made me feel guilty. He did not argue. He didn't try to convince me. He didn't explain why it mattered. He just accepted my answer. That was the last time he asked me for anything, the last time he reached out, the last time he expressed a need. 3 days later, he collapsed in his kitchen, alone, making himself lunch. Just collapsed. Heart failure, sudden, unexpected, the kind of thing that happens and changes everything in an instant. He never woke up, never regained consciousness, never had another moment of awareness. I went to the hospital, rushed there, drove too fast, parked illegally, ran through the halls. Machines were doing the breathing, up and down, mechanical, impersonal, keeping his body alive, but he was already gone. The room was quiet, except for the machines, beeping, hissing, clicking, the sounds of artificial life. I remember staring at his hands, resting on top of the white hospital sheets, weathered, worn, old, hands that built our house with his own labor, board by board, room by room, hands that worked without complaint, 40 years in the same job, never calling in sick, never asking for special treatment, and all I could think was, sitting there beside him, holding those hands, I chose a meeting over this, over him, over one afternoon, over the last chance I would ever have, over him, over the man who gave me life, who raised me, who sacrificed for me, over one afternoon, just a few hours, just sitting, just being present. I told myself it wasn't my fault. That's the first thing grief does. It makes you defensive. I told myself I didn't know, I couldn't have known. There was no way to predict this would happen. I told myself life happens. People die. It's natural. It's inevitable. No one is to blame. All true. All factually accurate. All technically correct. But the truth underneath those truths was this. I had the time. My calendar was full, but not actually full. I could have moved things. I could have rearranged. I could have made it work. I just didn't treat it as sacred. I treated it as ordinary, as flexible, as something that could wait. That is the mistake I cannot forgive myself for, not the one everyone else would understand, the one only I carry, not because I caused his death. I didn't. His heart failed. That wasn't my fault, but because I delayed presence, because I postponed connection, because I chose urgency over importance, I postponed something that mattered for something that didn't. I chose work that would be forgotten over time that can never be recovered. And once time closes, it does not negotiate. It doesn't give you another chance. It doesn't let you go back. It's just gone. You think regret comes from big decisions, from major life choices, from dramatic moments. It doesn't. Not usually. It comes from small dismissals, from the little rejections, from the minor postponements that seem insignificant, from later, from not now, from I'm busy, from next time, from not now, from after this project, from when things slow down, from I'll make it up to them, from promises you genuinely intend to keep but never do. You rarely do. Make it up to them, I mean. Life keeps moving, new urgencies arise, and then they're gone. For years I tried to bury that afternoon, tried to forget it, tried to move past it. I worked harder, stayed busier than ever, threw myself into projects and goals and achievements, stayed busier, filled every hour, made sure there was no time to think, no silence to sit in, told myself he understood, that he knew I loved him, that he didn't hold it against me. Maybe he did. Maybe he understood better than I did. Maybe he forgave me before there was anything to forgive. But that doesn't erase the absence. It doesn't change the fact that I wasn't there, that I chose not to be there. Because here is what 85 years taught me, what all this time has made crystal clear. The pain of loss is natural. Everyone loses people. Everyone experiences death. That's part of being human. The pain of neglect is chosen. That's different. That's something we do to ourselves. That's a wound we create. And chosen pain stays longer. Self-inflicted pain doesn't heal the same way. It's different, deeper, more persistent. I replay that conversation often. More often than I'd like to admit. More often than is probably healthy. Not dramatically, not with tears every time, not with visible grief, just quietly, in the spaces between other thoughts, in moments of silence, in the early morning or late at night. What if I had said yes, just that simple, just, yes, I'll come tomorrow? What if I had canceled the meeting, sent an email, rescheduled, made it work? What if I had treated that request as fragile instead of flexible? What if I had understood that some invitations don't come twice? It was one afternoon, just one, 3 or 4 hours at most, an immeasurably small percentage of my life, just one. But at the end of a life, sometimes one afternoon is everything. But at the end of a life, sometimes one afternoon is everything. Sometimes it's the difference between peace and regret. Let me tell you something uncomfortable, something you might not want to hear but need to hear. You are doing this right now, maybe not with a parent, maybe not in exactly the same way, not the same story. Your details are different. Your circumstances are unique. But the same pattern, the same choice, the same priority system that values urgency over importance. Someone in your life is asking for presence, maybe not in words, maybe just in the way they look at you, the way they linger, and you are offering efficiency, offering to handle it quickly, offering a condensed version of yourself. Someone is asking for time, for your attention, for your full, undivided, unhurried presence. And you are offering excuses, valid excuses, reasonable excuses, excuses that make sense, but still excuses. You are postponing connection for productivity, choosing accomplishment over relationship, choosing achievement over presence. And productivity will not sit beside your hospital bed. Your achievements won't hold your hand. Your efficiency won't comfort you. At 85, my calendar is empty, completely empty, no meetings, no deadlines, no urgent obligations, and I would give anything to have one more unimportant afternoon with my father, one more ordinary moment that I didn't value when I had it, one more conversation that felt ordinary, that felt like nothing special, that felt like something that could happen again any time. Ordinary moments become priceless when they end, when you can't have them anymore. When all you have is the memory. This is not about guilt. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. Guilt is useless. Guilt changes nothing. It is about awareness, about seeing clearly, about understanding while there's still time to do something about it. Most people do not lose what they love all at once. It's not sudden. It's not one dramatic moment. They lose it gradually, piece by piece, moment by moment, choice by choice. Through distraction, through being physically present but mentally absent, through being in the room but not in the moment, through prioritizing the urgent over the meaningful, through responding to what screams instead of what whispers, through believing there will always be another chance, through assuming time is more abundant than it is. There won't, not always. Sometimes you get one chance and you don't even know it's the last one. Not always. Sometimes there is no next time, no do-over, no second opportunity. After my father died, I changed. Not overnight. Change doesn't work that way, not immediately. Grief takes time to penetrate, to really sink in, to change you at the level of action. Grief takes time to break through denial, to break through the numbness, to become real enough to redirect you. But eventually, I began saying yes more often. to the small requests, to the unnecessary invitations, to the moments that didn't feel important. I attended the small things, the things I would have skipped before, the things that seemed optional, the school plays, even when they were terrible, even when my grandchild had 3 lines. I went, the quiet dinners, with no agenda, no purpose, just sitting together, just being together, the unnecessary visits, dropping by for no reason, calling just to talk, being present without a purpose. And something shifted, something inside me changed. Life slowed down, or maybe I slowed down. Maybe life moves at the same pace and I just started moving with it instead of against it. Not externally, not in terms of how much was happening, not in terms of busyness, internally in how I experienced it, in what I paid attention to, in what I valued. Here is what I learned too late, what I wish I had understood at 42. Presence is not a luxury. It's not something you do when you have extra time. It's not optional. It is a responsibility. It's what we owe the people we love. It's the bare minimum of love. If someone you love asks for your time, treat it as fragile, because it is. Because it might not come again, because it is. Because they won't ask forever. Because one day the asking stops and you realize you miss it. I cannot forgive myself because I understand now what that request meant, what he was really asking for. It was not about sitting. It wasn't about the physical act of being in the same room. It was about being seen, about being valued, about being worth someone's time and attention, being heard, being acknowledged, being made to feel like you still matter. Being acknowledged at the end of strength, being told without words that you're not invisible, that you still count. He did not need advice. He wasn't asking me to solve anything. He wasn't asking me to fix anything. He needed company, just presence, just the gift of time and attention. And I offered postponement. I offered later. I offered next week. I offered everything except what he actually asked for. At 85, my body weakens. Every year it gets harder, slower, more painful, more limited. My hands are slower. They shake sometimes. Simple tasks take longer. Things I used to do automatically now require focus, but my clarity is sharper than ever. My mind sees things more clearly now than it ever did, and clarity hurts. When you finally understand what mattered, when you see how simple it was, it hurts. Because I can see the simplicity of what mattered. It wasn't complicated, it wasn't difficult, it wasn't expensive, it wasn't complexity, it wasn't solving problems, it wasn't achieving things, it wasn't success, it wasn't building things, it wasn't accomplishing goals, it was showing up when it counted, just being there, just saying yes, just being present. If I could compress 85 years into one warning, if I could give you one piece of advice that actually matters, it would be this. Do not delay presence. Don't postpone the people who matter. Don't assume you'll have another chance. Cancel the meeting. It can be rescheduled. It really can. It's not as important as you think. Make the call now, today, before you forget. Before it's too late. Sit down. Stop multitasking. Stop checking your phone. Just sit. Put the phone away. Nothing on that screen is more important than the person in front of you. Nothing. The work will wait. It always does. Work is infinite. Time with people you love is not. Death will not. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't reschedule. It doesn't give extensions. I have lived long enough to accept many things. Age teaches acceptance. Time forces it. Mistakes in judgment, bad decisions, wrong choices. I've made peace with most of them. Financial losses, money I lost, opportunities I missed, investments that failed. I've accepted those. Broken plans, things that didn't work out, dreams that died, paths not taken. I've made peace with those too. But this one remains. This one I can't let go of. This one still hurts exactly as much as it did 43 years ago, not because I am dramatic, not because I enjoy suffering, not because I want to hold on to pain, because it revealed something fundamental about me, about priorities, about what I valued versus what actually mattered. We rarely regret the risks we take, the bold moves, the chances we took even though they might fail. We regret the love we postpone, the connection we delay, the presence we withhold. You will not remember most of your work days. They blur together. They lose their distinctiveness. They disappear. You will remember the moments you ignored someone who needed you. Those stay, those remain, those hurt. That memory does not fade. Time doesn't soften it. Distance doesn't blur it. It settles like sediment, like something heavy that sinks to the bottom and stays there, quietly, without screaming, without demanding attention, just always there. Permanently, forever, until you die, and maybe even beyond that if such things exist. I am 85 years old. My father has been gone for decades, 43 years, more than half my life ago, and I still see that kitchen, where he collapsed, where he fell, where everything changed. I still hear that simple request, his voice, the words, the tone, the hope in it, just for a while. That's all he asked, just for a while, not forever, not even for long, just for a while. It was not a big ask. It wasn't demanding. It wasn't unreasonable. It wasn't asking too much. It was not heroic. It didn't require sacrifice. It didn't require courage. It just required presence. It was human, simple, basic, the most fundamental thing one person can ask of another, and I treated it as optional, as flexible, as something that could wait, as less important than a meeting. That is the mistake I cannot forgive myself for. 43 years later, still. If you are listening to me now, do not repeat it. Please, learn from my mistake instead of making your own version of it. The people asking for your time are not asking forever. They're not asking for everything, just for presence, just for now. They are asking now, this moment, this day, this opportunity that might not come again, and now is the only moment that doesn't return. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow isn't promised. Now is all we ever really have. I cannot change my past. It's fixed. It's done. It's permanent. But you can still change your next decision. You have that power. You have that choice. Choose presence. Choose the people who matter. Choose connection over achievement. Before you are 85 years old and remembering one afternoon you cannot get back.